Hello Python programming language lovers, thank you for being with me in this video. Let's do a very quick review of four data structures because these data structures are very important. For example, let's try, L is an empty list if L is equal to list, open and close a parenthesis. You can see here that its size is a 0. Similarly, D is an empty dictionary if D is equal to dict, open and close parentheses. These can be filled and the type function can be applied to them. We can try it. For example, you can fill them with a square bracket notation. Okay, we got an error, index error. List assignment index out of range. Okay, we can fill it like, for example, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, because our list, our L at first had not any members, so there were no index either. But now, if we call, for example, L index 0, we can see that it shows us the 0, which is the element placed in the index 0 of this list. We can also apply the type function L on it, and we can see that this is list, and we can also see it here. Okay, we can also fill the D. For example, we can say 0, A, 1, for example, B, 2, for example, C. Okay, now we can apply the same type function on it, and we can see that D is a dictionary, and we can see its type here actually. Similarly, S is an empty set if we define S as set, open and close a parenthesis. We can see that its size here is 0. Please pay attention to the point that if you write an open and a close curly brace here, you can see that this is a symbol of an empty dictionary. You can see this here. You can see that above we defined D with open and close a parenthesis, a curly braces, and D was a dictionary. So open and close curly braces, and without putting any members inside them, this is the symbol of an empty dictionary. So what is a symbol of an empty set? This is here. You can see that. We can apply the type function on our defined S, and we can see that this is a set, and we can also see its size from here, which is a 0. And similarly, if we define a t as tuple, opening and closing parentheses, we can see that t is an empty tuple here. Okay, we have already said that the interpreter does not check the type, but if we enter the integer, for example 120, as an input in this function that we wrote in the previous video, we will receive an error. This issue comes back to what we said in this function. We have said to use intersection. We check the elements one by one, and considering that the set function works on sequences and not on integers, the intersection function cannot find the members of the set of V. Because if the input is integer, there will be no set to compare with V. The same is true for decimal numbers, for float numbers actually. We can press F5 button here, and we can see that the file is executed, and we can call our function, which was search for vowels. Okay, let's call it without any input, and you can see that we get an error because we defined this function here with an input. So we need to call it with an input. Let's try, for example, an integer, and we can see that we get another error because you can see here int object is not iterable. Okay, let's try it with, for example, float numbers. For example, something like this. You can see that we get typically almost same error, and what is printed or written here is that float object is not iterable either. Okay, if the input is a list of numbers, the function returns an empty list because the second set is formed from the members of the input list, but the result of this intersection will be an empty set. Here the function can actually iterate and move on the members of this list. And now if the input list is a list of letter strings, for example A, D, or something like this, you can see that the function works well. Let's try it together. Let's call our function and consider a list of integers as input. We can see that our function is executed, but the output is an empty set. Let's try it with a list of a string, for example, A, B, E, for example. We can see that the function is executed and it returns us the common members of the set form of this input list and the set V. Now, according to what was said, it is not bad to add a piece of information to the function. This can be done in several ways. One of these ways is to add information in docstring. Of course, it is better not to make this docstring too long, and in general, it is not a very reliable method because it is not possible to force all Python programmers to have docstrings or to read docstrings when referring to coding snippets. As we said, PEP is only a suggestion and not a law. There is another solution. Python 3 uses a type of notation called annotation. or it is also called the type hint. So you can use annotation to specify types. Now, how does this work? This annotation specifies the standard return type and type of our arguments. There are 2 points. One is that annotation is optional, but it is better to add it to your function. The second point is that this annotation only conveys information to you and has no other behavior. That is, it does not perform type checking. Let's add annotation to this function. First, we can summarize the last 2 lines. How? We can remove this part. We can remove this part, and we can have this part here. Okay. Now, how to apply this annotation? In the input part of the function here, we put a sign column in the parentheses in front of the name of our input, which is a word here, and write the type, for example here, str. Okay. You can see that there is no error or warning. Okay. We specify the output type in the same line. How? After the parentheses here, we put a dash sign and a greater than sign. This sign, greater than. We can actually consider a space here and a space here. This is similar to showing a direction. Pay attention. And here we write the output type. For example, it is set here. Okay. Note that the dash and this greater than sign must be contiguous. We run the program. Okay. So you can see that this annotation is just information. It does not do type checking. We can call our function and we can write, we can run it with the same previous input. So we can run it with a list of integers as input, and we can see that it does not perform any type checking, but this is just an information for ourselves. We can run it with an integer number, and we can see that this annotation did not anything special in the process of execution of the function, but this is just an information here. If you apply the help function to the function name, you will see that annotation and docstring will be shown to you. Let's use it. Help, the name of our function, which is search for vowels. Okay, and we can see that this shows us the annotation and the docstring here. Let's make a change to the function. We want v to be a secondary argument. For this, it is enough to put a comma in the input part of the function inside the parentheses and after the first argument here actually, and write the name of the second variable, that is v here. We can specify its type in this annotation. In this way, we make this function public, The important thing is that the name of the arguments are also very important to help in understanding the program in future references. So let's change them. For example, it cannot be a phrase, so let's change it to phrase, and consequently we need to change this one too. Okay. Let's make these changes by writing a new function. For example, we define the function search for letters with arguments letters with string types and phrase string types. The output will be the same. A set actually. We added like a string like this. Let's copy paste it here. We can actually copy paste this code too. Okay, control. Okay, let's change it to search for letters, phrase strings, a comma, the second input which is letters with a string type. The output will be as same set. Actually this V is not here. Let's change it to vowels, for example. Set apply to these letters. Let's change it to vowels. Okay, and you can see that our phrase, our function actually is ready to use. We can also update the docstring. For example, we can write or return the set of letters found in phrase. Okay, return the set of letters found in phrase. Okay. Now we write the whole function in one line. We can actually do it. Remove this part, remove this part, and cut and paste it here. Actually, we need to okay, you can see it here, and we don't need this part neither. Okay, to use the intersection method, both inputs must be sets. In this way, we have a more complex line of code. These methods actually hide the complexity of programming. Now we can run this file and work with these two functions. So press F5 button. Okay, we can call our function. For example, we can call search for vowels with the input, for example, how are you? And we can see that the function is working correctly, and we can also call the second function, which is search for letters, and do it with the same phrase, and for example H, W, and R. And we can see that what is the problem? We here forgot to add s. So let's run it again and call the function again, and we can see that the function is working well. Okay. We can also apply help to second function to search for letters, and we can see that we have the annotation and the docstrings here. Okay. You can use different examples. If we enter the second input of the second function with vowels, then the second function can do the task of the first function as well. Now, in some cases, the second function can be used instead of the first function. For example, suppose that we have used search for vowels in 100 places in the program, and then we need to use search for letters in 10 places. Now, if we want to replace search for letters with search for vowels, it would be nice if we could give a default value to the second input argument, and if needed, consider this argument as something other than the default value. Because we defined two entries in the search for letters definition, if we call the function with one entry, we will get an error. Let's do it. Search for letters, for example, with just a phrase. You can see that there is an error. After applying these changes, we will no longer receive such an error. To give a default argument to a function, it is enough to put an equal sign inside the parentheses here in front of the desired argument in the function definition in the input section, and then enter the default value we want. In this way, if we do not specify the second input argument in the function call, we will not receive an error. Rather, the default value here is vowels replaces the second entry. Of course, the function still works with various other inputs. We can apply them here. String equal to A, E, I, O, U. Let's press F5. Let's here call our second function, which is search for letters, and call it with just one input. You can see that it considers the second input as vowels and returns us the common members of this phrase and the vowels. Okay, you can see that if we again want to consider another sequence of strings as second input here, there is no error. Another important issue is calling functions from the keyword argument method. For example, here the first argument is phrase and the second argument is letters. And now when we call the function with teacher and the AEI, for example, inputs, the teacher is considered as phrase and AEI as letters. Let's call it, for example, here. Teacher, here, AEI. Okay, you can see that. It means that the arrangements are preserved. If the number of arguments increases, for example 10, in this situation it becomes difficult for the user to maintain the order of the arguments when calling the function. To facilitate this difficulty, Python has a feature. This is the ability to use the keyword argument method in calling functions. The calls we have made so far are called the positional arguments. That is the arguments that are specified based on the position. But in calling functions using the keyword argument method, you enter arguments that are specified based on keywords. Now, what does this mean? That is, in the function call, we have, for example, search for letters. and we can write, for example, here letters equal to, for example, TQH, and phrase equal to, for example, the same teacher. And you can see that the function is executed and there is no problem. You can see that the program works. This call is keyword argument style. This method is effective in cases where the number of arguments is large. In some cases where it is necessary to repeat a complex code line many times in the program, it is better to define a function and put this complex code line inside it so that the complexity is hidden and the readability is increased, what we did here. Okay, thank you for being with me in this educational video. Stay tuned for super subtle and practical tips in future videos. Have a nice day.